This pretty good coverage is brought to you by Power Grip, the official retail partner of the European Pro Tour.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of the European Pro Tour. This is the fourth stop, the 2023 Nokia Open in Tampere, Finland at Nokia Disc Golf Park. We are excited to be bringing you round 3 back 9 MPO lead card coverage, brought to you by MDG Media, only 9 short holes before we crown your next champion. I'm Connor Wood, and with me, Elias Luukkonen.
Hello guys, we had an exciting front 9 and a new leader in the house, Lauri Lehtinen. Looking forward to how it unfolds on this difficult wooded plus open mix slash back 9. On hole 10, starting off the wooded stretch of the back 9. This hole, it's a par 4, 179 meters. Players are looking forward to hit the drive low ceiling just above this hillside that we're flying over right now, either with a backhand roller or a strong driver forehand finishing off towards the right. This is about the perfect landing spot we're flying over past right now. From there the approach is very simple shot. You can either throw backhand straight shot or a forehand fading into the right side hillside. This basket has got a great backstop on the right side, so even with an overstable forehand you can kind of run it for the eagle from the perfect landing spot of the drive.
We see getting us started on this back 9, Nieminen, obviously opting for the forehand, very familiar, and a great shot from him to get some good distance, but sit safely up on that right side, opening up the gap. Personally, I'm a fan of the roller here to combat the low ceiling and push the distance, but it requires a significant more amount of touch with the right to left slope. Lauri also opting for the safer forehand.
Unfortunately, just hitting one of the first branches on the right side. The roller is a great play, but it has gotten tighter throughout the years, since the tee pad has been pulled back about 10 meters. Daniel still going for the roller, hopefully missing all of these branches as he does. Roller has much more distance potential, as we can see he's getting a huge piece of the 179 meters of this hole. Unfortunately ending up on the left side of the fairway, which is not ideal, but he might have some sort of a scramble shot to the basket from there.
Mauri also opting for the forehand, as he comes out a touch early on a significant hyzer angle, doesn't push forwards completely through that gap, although he'll be on the right side, does not get as much distance as I'm sure he'd like. We see Lauri now off his scramble from the branch, needing a lot of distance. I think he'll get quite aggressive on the speed of this throw, shaping a driver through those trees, settles it on the top right of the hill, a nice position.
Yeah, that's a good position. It's almost an open forehand pitch approach from there. Only about 50 meters left to the basket. Mauri still not quite over the hillside, so having to contend with the high floor and the low ceiling at the same time. Turning it over to the left side of the fairway, actually hitting the net, protecting the tee pad of the next hole. So good break there to hit the net and not go into the woods.
And he's fairly close to the green now, even potentially looking at a putt. We see Jesse from his ideal landing zone, I believe, might want a little bit more rightwards, but as he shapes this forehand, fires just over the top of the basket, fading into that lush rough on the right side of the green, settles it softly. That will be putting for birdie.
You can see Jesse really trusted the backstop on this hole, almost running it for the eagle, going even over the basket. And Daniel looks like he's on the edge of the fairway. There's only about 55 meters from here, as you see the 50 meter stake just in front of him. This also fading to the hillside, and that's just the perfect shot.
A lot of height, a lot of anhyzer, trusting the stability of his disc, really leaning towards the right at the end. Lauri here wanting a short upshot, nice and low to the ground, likely also playing a very overstable disc. And he does just that, securing his short putt for par now, hopefully still continuing his bogey-free final round.
Yeah, it's really impressive if you can play bogey-free on this difficult course with lots of woods and lots of OB on the open holes. As Mauri runs aggressively towards the basket, unfortunately hitting the first branch in front of him. But he has already made multiple of these putts during the round, so wouldn't be surprised if he gave it a good run.
as he finds the band, potentially feeling the pressure as the holes are running out. He has slipped from that lead position, but still very much in contention. We see Jesse now off the knee, an awkward stance under the branches.
Luckily only about 5 to 6 meters to the basket from here, able to stab it in under the low branches. And yeah, it's interesting to see Mauri playing possibly his worst looking round of the past 2 tournaments, as he's coming off fresh as the Estonian Open champion from last weekend.
European Pro Tour champion. He has already numerous wins this season, as we see him now left with his short putt. He has a really well-rounded game and is well equipped to win any tournament that he goes to at this moment.
Absolutely. I would consider him the best player in Europe as of right now. Although that's not really going to help him in this tournament where he's already 2 strokes back off the lead. Lauri really shooting solid on this final round, avoiding the big mistakes and getting the birdies when can, as we see Daniel tapping it in for the great birdie 3 on that hole.
Jesse also finding his birdie, both of them taking actually 2 strokes on Mauri and 1 on Lauri. These guys are continuing to battle as the holes run out.
As we move on to the second wooded hole of the back 9. Off the drive, you're really trying to push your either layup on top of the hillside or go with a more aggressive shot, challenging the low ceiling and going over the hillside, and from there, whether how far you throw the disc, you either have a short hyzer to the basket or a bit of a longer hyzer. But it's a very simple hole. Need a straight shot off the drive and then just a basic hyzer to the basket. The basket is perched up on this on the top of this hillside, so if you're short and you're running your putts, you might have some nerves for the possible comebackers.
Yeah, some really thoughtful and intentional course design with that final guardian tree as well as the slightly elevated basket. We see Jesse here with a straight to hyzer fading forehand, gets right out into the open, surely enough distance for him to try and shape very likely another forehand around that final guardian.
Yeah, Jesse got so much distance off the tee that he can really choose the hyzer of either side, either a forehand or backhand. Daniel also going pretty much full power off the drive, smashing it through the gap, gets almost all the way to the basket. He's only about 30 short. That's the best draw I have ever seen on this hole.
Absolutely smushed that. Referred to in the front 9 as the local hero, Daniel Davidsson, with a beautiful shot, using the full flight, pushing the ceiling to get maximum distance. Lauri here.
With a very low forehand, but stays in the fairway, and even though he's doesn't seem to be very content with the shot there, he's gonna have a great look at the basket from there. About 110 meters of hyzer distance left, slightly downhill from there. Mauri really looking forward to hopefully getting his back 9 started on this difficult hole 11. His skill set really suits this drive, just able to throw the low forehand, a little bit left side of the gap unfortunately, but fights through the last trees, and that's a prime position there.
Yeah, definitely one where you can find trouble, but a very attackable hole if you can hit that initial gap. You can see Lauri here, blind now, needing to crest over this hill. He'll swing a big wide hyzer, needs to push forward enough to fight the backside of the tree, but he sends that a bit too nose up, crashing into those branches, falling out short and to the left. He will still have some work towards the green.
You could see the uphill run-up really affecting the release, causing him to throw it much higher than anticipated. And Jesse, as we expected, is going actually for the forehand hyzer around the left side of the big tree that's protecting the basket. He's going down the slope that's behind the basket, but it's a very safe putt from there, only about 9 meters left.
And I like going slightly deep of the basket as he's then putting back uphill, preferable to having that slope behind the basket if you're short. You see Lauri now battling to the green, swinging his big hyzer, gets a gentle skip, also cresting just long of the basket. He'll also be putting backwards towards the elevated chains. A good scramble from him to still have a look at par with 2 imperfect shots.
Absolutely, he will be pretty happy with the par there. Obviously, looking forward to seeing Mauri just parking this shot, maybe making Lauri's par feel just a little bit worse, as he's likely going to lose a stroke to Mauri.
And Daniel so far up the fairway, an incredible drive, just able to jump putt it no more than 25 meters to the basket, sits it down in the bullseye.
I can guarantee there hasn't been many jump putt approaches on this hole in competition play ever. So that's an incredible drive there. Jesse from long off the basket puts it in the heart. That's a very solid stroke there. And he's also playing a very good round, already 6 under.
Very solid on the putting and off the tee, minimizing his mistakes and leaning on his strengths. Jesse Nieminen now putting 2 in a row together here on the back 9. We see Mauri just a touch closer than Jesse, still about 6 meters. No easy putts here. He finds his focus and finds his birdie.
Yeah, that's a great bounce back birdie there after the bogey on hole 10. Getting a stroke back on Lauri, at least 1 stroke, depending whether this putt goes in or misses. Lauri obviously a very solid putter, not going to miss that putt many times out of 10.
But with no birdies yet on this back 9, coming in as the leader, will begin to feel the pressure a little bit. Daniel now closest of the bunch off an enormous drive, taking a stress-free 3. If you can, that's how you play the hole, folks.
Absolutely, and this is one of the easier holes. Actually, the start of the back 9 is really the stretch where you would like to be getting some of those birdies. And that theme continues on the hole 12. 115 meters, slightly downhill. You want to throw either a straight forehand through this gap that we're flying through, or have a aim slightly on the left side of the gap with a turnover backhand, preferably a mid-range or fairway driver, and trying to crash it to the slightly uphill sloping green. It's certainly one of the easier holes on the course, just for the fact that the gap is pretty wide and the line that you have to throw is pretty natural.
And going over this valley of the fairway, if you do connect with one of these early trees, often left with a considerably uphill approach shot, really rewarding a pure hit of this gap.
Yes, so with a signature forehand, it's a bit of a tighter line, but he gets it just perfect in the middle of the gap and hyzers out just to the 5 meters right off the basket. That's a great, precise forehand there.
Fantastic, and he's looking like he's really caught his stride, some fantastic momentum on his side. We see Daniel now also with 2 birdies so far in the back 9, looking to put his third together, playing the backhand route, turning it over and panning out to flat beautifully, catching that thick grass and sitting it down just by the basket.
You can really see the uphill sloping green there, catching his disc, even coming with a lot of speed, just inside the bullseye there. Mauri unfortunately going towards the left side of the gap, but just fades before. He's outside the circle, but good look for the birdie there.
Fortunate to get some extra distance off that tree kick. Will maybe still be giving him a long look at the putt rather than a throw approach.
Absolutely. If you hit one of those trees on the gap, you might even have a tough time getting the par on this, one of the easier holes on the course. As we see Lauri throwing a great turnover shot through the gap and ending up inside the circle on the right side of the basket.
And a quick view of the gallery here. Spectators enjoying this intense lead card action on a beautiful course. We have Mauri Villmann up first. Gives it a chance just off the right side, but a great pace, great height.
A rare air ball from Mauri. We haven't seen any air balls from him so far this round, even from deep circle too. Lauri getting the stroke back that he lost on the previous hole. He's very happy about that birdie.
And I don't know if we've seen any air balls from Mauri this season, let alone this tournament. Normally incredibly precise, but of course it does happen to everyone. If you play enough disc golf, you'll miss some putts eventually. No matter how good you are, we see him here to bring back his par.
For sure, and as Mauri taps it in from 5 meters, even though he's already 2 strokes back, there are some very difficult holes coming up that maybe even multiple stroke swings could occur on one of those difficult open holes that are coming up after this one. As we see Jesse hopefully tapping it in for the birdie, actually tying Mauri for the second place.
And he's bought his ticket. He is firmly on the birdie train now. Nieminen throwing and putting to perfection. We see Daniel now super parked with a short pitch putt in for his 2 as well, matching yesterday's 3 for 3 on the back 9.
A round of disc golf can be long, and if you're playing in a tournament, it can feel like a marathon. This can leave you physically and mentally fatigued by the end when your shots matter most. With space for your discs, water, and even a place to sit, a cart enables you to bring what you need, helping you feel more prepared and energized without carrying the extra weight. This can help you maintain your edge and save you strokes through every round.
As we move on to the most difficult stretch on the course, holes 13 through 16, really the most demanding and the biggest potential for big failure. On 13, it's a downhill tee shot, par 4, 201 meters. You're trying to land over the small river between the first and second part of the fairway, ideally throwing a stable fairway or distance driver for the drive. From a great drive that lands inbounds on the fairway, you might even see the basket that's tucked onto the right side behind the pond. Ideally a backhand drive and a forehand approach, although Jesse obviously going with his signature forehand off the drive.
As we'll see him need to control the nose angle here to avoid fading towards the water. We see him get a good significant turnover there, but as he pushes out the left side, really contending with that OB, finds the red flag, shows a little bit the danger of the forehand tee shot. Very tough to avoid fading out, but also needing to not overturn.
Yeah, it's a very, very tight hole, not because of the trees, but because of the OB, especially on the left side of the fairway. It's very easy to fade in there. As we see Daniel inbounds, turning it over slightly to the right side trees, but gets a good kick and he's gonna be in position possibly even for the birdie.
Lauri now, our leader with the 2-stroke lead over the 3 other competitors on this card. He shapes something out to the right, will need to beat these branches and fade back in bounds. Tough to see if he found that or not. We'll see what lie he has and if he can manufacture a shot to the green. We have Mauri now.
Yeah, very often where Lauri landed, it's gonna end up OB if you hit that big bushy tree. Mauri actually going with the safe play on the short side of the river between the 2 parts of the fairway. Still from here it's possible to get to the basket, as he looks to be going with a powerful forehand hyzer overstable driver, and he's just about to park. That's a great play, really knowing the course and knowing that you don't have to get all of that distance with the first shot, but maybe only with the second shot.
An amazing blind shot around the corner, trusting his forehand power on the full hyzer angle. We've seen it before and we saw it there again. Jesse with a similar shot bleeds just a little bit long there. And you can see how quickly that OB can come into play. Those white stakes no more than 4 or 5 meters behind the basket.
Very true. Yes, with already the double OB on this hole, looking forward to hopefully tapping in his bogey. Not sure if Lauri was in bounds there, but either way, makes a great approach inside the bullseye. You can see just how tight the green is with the OB. It's only about 6 meters from each side of the green to the OB line.
And Daniel once again with the longest drive off the tee, showing that he can just pitch up a soft hyzer. I think that shorter distance approach allowing him to mitigate the risk of OB long using a low speed disc, avoiding the ground play, also some height to just stab in. We see Jesse Nieminen now.
Very solid putt, even after the 2 OB strokes. Another elevated basket here, making the putting just a little bit more difficult. This is also, since it's in the open, it's one of the more windier parts of the course, although right now it looks like it's not very windy on the course. As we see Mauri tapping in that great birdie, laying up on the drive and going aggressive with the second shot. And Daniel, the other way around, going aggressive with the drive and awarded with a short approach for the birdie.
And a perfect back 9 for Daniel so far. 4 through 4, we'll move on to hole 14.
14, the legendary island hole of Nokia Disc Golf Park. Off the drive, you're trying to land just past this walking path with a hyzer. On this hole, they are using the bunker rule, meaning that if you go outside of the fairway, if you go OB, it's not considered OB, but rather you have to rethrow with no penalty. So after the first shot, you really want to hit this island on your first try, and if you don't, you have to try again until you get it inside the hay bales. It's a really nerve-wracking hole. You have seen many great players taking a lot of big numbers on this hole.
I believe we've seen numbers well over 10 strokes here on this par 4, really suggesting that it can be tricky for the best players, as we see a great drive from Daniel there to position himself, and really one that could make or break a great round.
Absolutely, and Daniel there getting near the left side of the fairway, but staying in bounds, which is ideal because now he's only got about 80 meters to the basket, so the more you can be left, the shorter your approach is. Compared to, for example, Mauri, he's a little bit shorter and a little bit more right, which means that he's got a good 15 to 20 meters more left to the basket than Daniel.
And he did opt for that wider gap. We see Lauri doing the same here. High and wide, really avoids bringing any OB into play, but as you mentioned, will leave them with a longer approach. But if they're comfortable with that distance on that pinpoint tight green, then I think it's the safer of the two gaps to hit. We'll see Jesse now shaping the backhand as well.
Yeah, Jesse with the rare backhand, but comfortable enough with the backhand, especially on these open holes. Looks to be pushing more of a flip-up shot. He's actually quite a ways out from the basket. I wouldn't be surprised if he laid up from there, but looks like Jesse is comfortable with the forehand going to the small, tight island that this hole is offering.
As he throws an Anheuser release, sneaks just less than a meter long, and he will need to rethrow. As we see another driver in his hand, this time a touch more inside, pushes it up to flat, trusting the overstability to sit it down, and this time finds the island. Great adjustment.
That's a great shot after the errant first approach there. You can see that basket is placed on the tighter part of the island on the left side, so many players trying to aim to the fat part of the island, more towards the right, and hopefully making their birdie putt from further away. As we see Lauri with just the perfect shot in the middle of the island. That's a scary putt from there though. Even inside the island, if you miss the putt and go OB, you still have to re-putt from the same position without a penalty.
Not allowing the fortune of the OB line, we see Mauri Villmann shaping his hyzer into the green, and as he settles it down and skips again just long, you can really see how tight that line is. And at this point in the tournament, final round lead card, this can be intensely mentally fatiguing to continue to try to hit this island disc after disc. You see him come up short now, as this will be his third shot. Reminder that there are no penalty strokes for missing, but he will not gain any distance. And to be fair, only a few discs in the bag may shape ideally to hit this green. You are throwing a different disc each time, needing to make the adjustment to both the distance, shape, and the disc you're throwing. He finds a third shot going long.
Unfortunately, as you saw, Mauri going the first two shots with an overstable slower disc, but the third shot with a driver and unable to adjust for the faster speed of the driver. This one looks to be just OB once again. This is really what makes this hole insanely difficult. If you miss that first shot, the second and third shot is getting continuously more and more difficult, as he now is aiming more towards the wider part of the island, just skipping inside the circle there, and that's a great shot.
And what are your thoughts on a hole like this that can really be incredibly punishing for an imperfect shot? Do you think that this is a good test for the top level players in Europe?
Absolutely, and this hole really tests your mental skills, especially after you miss that first shot. And because you can also play the hole safe, you're not forced to go for the island on your first shot. You can go further down the fairway on your second shot and make that approach quite easy actually. Obviously, these players competing for the lead, really wanting to hit the island with their first. And Daniel with a great shot to the wide part of the island and just laying up for the smart par there.
Absolutely. Not only is the OB on the right, we see Jesse there with a little bit of a chain out, really wanting that one. Did well to put himself into the island. We see the current leader, Lauri Lehtinen, putting towards that bunker area, a little bit tentative as a result, sits it down short, and you saw how badly he wanted that birdie.
Yeah, that would have been a very important stroke going down these final 4 holes coming up. I know Lauri would have loved that potential 3-stroke lead that he would have got. A 2-stroke lead that he would have got with that putt.
But as Mauri takes a triple bogey, Jesse taking a single, Lauri and Daniel securing their 4. Still a fantastic score here. As you see, they will still be taking strokes on the field without a doubt. We move on to hole 15.
Hole 15, certainly one of the most difficult holes on the course. Extremely long par 3, 140 meters. OB lining the fairways on the left and right side, tightening up towards the basket. The whole fairway is sloping from left to right and slightly downhill from the tee, so if you're throwing a backhand, it is extremely touchy with the angle control. Many players opting for the forehand since it is fading towards the hillside, but it's a very long forehand to get all the way to the basket. I would expect at least Mauri and possibly Lauri and Jesse to have the distance with the forehand. Daniel seems to be going with the flip-up backhand, trying to ride the right side of the fairway and keep it low enough to the hillside where it doesn't skip OB left.
Great shot as he matches the grade of the hill perfectly, ensuring he doesn't finish too strong, sits it down just before that OB line. And although this may look like a wide and generous island fairway, the OB can come into play so quickly, even for the best players. Lauri now also opting for the backhand. With some understability, he'll need this to hold the sustained turn, and it does, as that looks like a significantly early release on the left side, trusting the flight, and almost shockingly good result for how it initially looked.
Yeah, that was an absolute smash, going with the understable mid-range there, really removing that fade from the end of the flight of the disc. Yes, trying to go for the straight forehand, trying to turn it over a bit. He's fading towards the right side OB and gets a huge skip. He looks to be just OB there on the walking path. Unfortunate result. I'm sure he's really not happy with the shot there.
You see Mauri now. This would be great to see him bounce back after a troublesome hole 14. Has shown that he has the power, but with the nose-up angle, he turns around immediately. His body language suggesting he does not like it. Although, with a fortunate roll towards the basket, looks to be possibly within the circle, if not circle's edge, and a completely fine result here. As Jesse forced to just lay up with that death putt from so far, he is going to be taking a bogey.
Yeah, this is an extremely scary green for putting as well, even from Lauri's angle. Not putting downhill, but any sort of basket hit like that could have very well rolled OB. Fortunately stays just on the edge of the bullseye there, doesn't take any more damage. Let's see if Mauri has the confidence to run that putt and banks it on the low right side in the baskets.
And I think that will really lift his spirits a little bit. Hating the shot out of the hand, ended with a fortunate result and a great birdie putt to close out on hole 15. Daniel with another great birdie putt, battling uphill, pushed all the way towards that OB line, but ensuring that he can come back up the hill safely, as Daniel now tying Lauri at 18 under here on hole 15. As this is for par, they will both be tied up at the lead position.
Yeah, that was a great putt in a big moment by Daniel. You could really see how excited he was when that putt went in. Very difficult uphill putt. You have difficult footing, and even you have to putt the disc much harder than normal.
What is going on? Holy cow, an eagle!
Niklas!
What just happened? 80. Going hard. This is looking really good. Going in? Oh my gosh!
Whoa!
Within even 30 meters. He's giving it a chance. Get it!
No
Oh, he
way.
did it! What a highlight putt!
way!
A little showmanship. So cool.
Thank you for that.
As we move on to the famous hole 16, originally known as the hole 18 of the Beast layout, although a different layout here. Lined with OB, off the drive you're trying to land somewhere near these Christmas trees, hopefully not behind one of them. Anything in bounds of the drive is great, and after that you have an uphill right-hand backhand hyzer approach. Also an incredibly tight green, packed with OB, only about 5 meters on the left side of the basket and short. And also if you go long and right, you're also going to be OB most certainly. So a very precise shot needed with both the drive and especially on the approach.
We see Daniel now with the box, tied for the lead. This is an important throw here as he hangs it out high and wide. He will be fighting over OB the entire way and swinging it back into the fairway. He looks to be in a good position, nice and safe, maybe slightly pinched by that large tree, but I think well enough behind it to have an open look battling up the hill.
Yeah, that's a good shot in this situation, although he does have a lot of distance left to the basket. The further you fade left on this initial drive, the more you have distance left to the basket. As we see Mauri going with more aggressive shot, trying to land more in the middle of the fairway. Looks like he found that one Christmas tree there, but hopefully punching through.
The biggest of the bunch, it looks like. We'll see what he has left to contend with. Lauri now, also tied in the lead position, opting for a slightly more conservative shot, a bit less power, and some more fade as he also slides up right behind that large tree. Will give him a tough choice to make if he chooses to play for position or power on his second.
Yeah, on this situation I would expect Lauri to be still going for the green, depending on what Daniel does before him. Jesse really making the drive look easy with a low forehand, skipping to the middle of the fairway. That's a great position play there. Daniel first of the two leaders. This shot is really deciding for both what Lauri does and what the tournament is gonna end up. Going wide, high hyzer. The line is looking pretty good.
As long as he can be sure to find the distance, avoiding that OB pool on the left, looks to have brought it in safe up to the green. Lauri with a nice gap between these two big trees. Also, with a big swinging hyzer, he's going to catch some skip and sneak right up to inside the circle. A really good shot at a prime moment for Lauri.
Yeah, that was insanely clutch and obviously expected from Lauri, and as he is one of the players that really excels in these big situations. As we see Jesse also going with the rare backhand of his, just fading left, and unfortunately does find the OB on the green. But he will have a short putt for the par, assuming that he did cross near the basket.
I believe he did. We'll see Mauri now with an open look. Of course, playing the wide swinging backhand hyzer, simply the best shot to fight up the hill and the best shot of the card there for Mauri on the approach, as he has almost pinned it right underneath for a tap in.
Yeah, Mauri really showing off that big distance to drive with the low speed disc. Daniel had a difficult, I believe he probably was safe there, but had a difficult putt for the birdie. So Lauri here to regain the lead.
And a defining moment, cashing that putt here on 16 with only 2 holes remaining after this. Seeing that Daniel did not secure the birdie, he gains the solo lead position. Jesse now from that OB line, securing his par, 4 strokes in 3 throws, just a minor error on the upshot, still well played.
Yeah, I have to give huge respect to Lauri for stepping up in the big moment and even making the difficult putt to the elevated basket. That was a really confident looking stroke by him. As we see Daniel tapping in the par and Mauri with a great birdie there. Moving on to the hole 17, one of the easier holes on the course. It's only 97 meters and playing well downhill, especially at the end of the fairway. Players are looking forward to hitting a straight to stable low disc through this gap. Low speed disc through this gap, hopefully keeping the shot low, because there's a bit of a low ceiling at the start of the fairway. It's a pretty wide gap and really about distance control, because the green is pretty fast. If you just hit your line with a slow enough shot, you should be right up there in the circle.
And this dry packed earth often offering a significant ground play, slide if you match the grade, skip if you're coming in on an angle. We see Mauri on the box with a soft hyzer, that low-speed disc that you mentioned, and there's the ground play. He actually fires long, but still will be left with a reasonable putt fighting uphill.
You can really see the downhill slope of the hole, not allowing the disc to stop before 10 meters long off the basket. Here's a very important shot from Lauri, going with a low speed stable disc. Unfortunately, really early on the release, hopefully fighting through those trees on the left side, and that's a really surprising error in this big situation for him.
As Daniel now, with the privilege of seeing that going after Lauri, knowing that he could very well take a stroke, makes a similar error, fading out incredibly early. Perhaps some of the nerves contributing, as you mentioned. This is a fairly one of the easier holes here, but still, given the circumstances, by no means an easy shot. We'll see Jesse showing us the forehand line, likely to turn this over softly and find a small fade at the end.
Yeah, looks like that's exactly what he's done. Even him going 15 to 10 meters past the basket with a low-speed forehand disc. And yeah, even though we could put Daniel's mistake up for nerves, I know this is not the most comfortable shot for him, going low-speed backhand compared to the low-speed forehand, but as we can see, a great approach from there, hopefully securing the par still after the errant drive.
Lauri also now looking to secure his 3, settle it close, and he has done just that. Just outside bullseye, he'll be left with 4 or 5 meters. We see Jesse now battling up the hill for his birdie. After a tough stretch on these last 4 holes, this would go a long way.
Unfortunately, just slow, and Jesse already outside of the contention for the win, but trying to put himself into the best possible position, hopefully inside the top 5 or even the top 4.
And Mauri, for his birdie, finds it. Really nice to find the 2 there in a situation where none of his other card mates are able to secure the birdie. That is a great one at an important time for him to still be in contention for these podium positions.
Yeah, and Mauri even has a chance, slight chance for the win, as we see Daniel just barely putting it in for the par. As Mauri is only 2 strokes back of the lead going into the hole 18, and on 18 you can definitely take a bogey, and it's not impossible that both of the Lauri and Daniel would throw an errant shot on 18, as we see Lauri putting it in for par, remaining as the solo leader going into the final hole.
And the race is tight with only 1 hole left to go. We see Mauri at 17, Daniel at 18, and Lauri at 19. With this final hole able to create score separation, this is it.
Absolutely, 114 meters, OB lining the left side and the right side of the fairway. Ideal shot here is a wide swinging hyzer forehand, a shot that all of these players have in their bag. It's not a very difficult hole, but the margin of error that you have to make on this hole to go OB is pretty small. So if you pull your forehand to the left, you're most likely OB. I would expect all of these players to go with a hyzer forehand. Let's see. Mauri first, trying to put the pressure on the other players.
And he's had a great command of the forehand on this hole in previous rounds. As he knows his lines and angles, he gives the high fighting hyzer, pushing the distance with a slightly understable disc. He brings it up once again to the green. Just incredible accuracy and precision on a long fighting hyzer.
And absolutely putting the pressure on these other guys. Lauri here essentially to secure the victory if he can put this inside the circle and in the bullseye. Let's see.
Looking like a very similar line to Mauri. Similar height, pushes it. And settles at a tough distance. That will be a tester putt for him to secure his win. Excited to see how this plays out. Daniel now.
Daniel with the alternate route, which is the very hard turning roller, going with the extremely understable disc towards the left side of the fairway, being able to flip it over, and he's inside the circle, just a little bit further away than Lauri, hopefully being able to put the pressure on Lauri in this big moment.
And Jesse, as you mentioned, out of contention for the leader position, still putting together a fine round and a strong performance here at the Nokia Open.
And that's a great looking forehand there, going with a bit of a lower, flatter inside line, just 5 meters from the basket. Let's see. Lauri doesn't seem too nervous in this big moment. And this is it. Daniel to put the pressure on Lauri. 8 meters away.
So close to finding that. As he catches a small roll off the right side, you can see in his body language he wanted it. Lauri knowing all he needs to take down this tournament is a 3, with Mauri walking up, Jesse walking up to his putt now. That is it for our lead position. We look now to Jesse to have a strong finish to a great tournament performance.
Unfortunately hits the basket in the middle of the chains and bounces out. That's the most unfortunate finish you can have. That's really tough to see. Hopefully not really ruining his position in the tournament, as we see Mauri trying to tap it in.
To tie for second with Daniel, a really significant throw and putt after a brutal hole 14 for him, secures a fantastic comeback, birdieing the final 4 holes. Just an incredible performance from Mauri, his composure, as we see there from Jesse the tap-in, and your 2023 Nokia Open champion, Lauri Lehtinen. What a win and what a performance.
Huge congratulations to Lauri, and this was really to be expected, although Mauri is playing incredible this year, but Lauri is certainly one of the biggest contenders in Europe. As you see the huge crowd cheering for him. He's a really well-liked person in all of Finland, as far as disc golfers go.
And an icon now with a Nokia Open win for the year 2023 under his belt. We take a look at the final standings. Lauri winning at 19 under, Daniel and Mauri tying in second, just 1 stroke behind him. Nilo Hongisto sneaking into 4th place, 17 under with a 9 under round. Fantastic performance there, a really great field and a really great tournament all wrapped up.
Yeah, that was very exciting to watch. Thank you guys for watching and listening to us, and see you in the next tournament.
Adios.